Well, what we're hearing from everybody is that we're all pretty much in the same place. We're in a position and we're saying, Lord, where do you want me? How is this going to look? Is it going to be a lot of short term for a lot of years? Is it going to be a few short terms and then a long term for quite a long time? Am I a sender? Am I a goer? Where do I belong? So that's pretty much where we're at. So today, welcome to Missions Level 1. And this is our introductory course in this Bible college. And in this course, we want to introduce you to all of the concepts of outreach. We know American outreach well because we do it. It's natural. It's within our sphere of influence. It's within our language. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to move our way out all the way to the most remote parts of the earth. We're going to have a lot of guest speakers, and we're going to hear from a lot of great people. So let's talk about some of the basic things of the class during our introduction. All of you, or let me say it this way, who has not gone on the website and understood how to use the church website or the school website? Do you guys all know? You guys are all okay? Okay, then I'll just breeze through this. I won't spend too much time. Normally, first semester, we spend a lot of time on this. But when you access the Bible College website, when you click on the button that says Populi, Populi is the management system for every class. So you click onto Populi, and when you hit that button, then you're going to go on to a next button. You're going to choose Fall 2017 Missions Level 1. And if that's your only class, it's your only choice. If you have multiple classes, then you need to choose that. When you go into that, under the Info tab, as you can see there on the top, that pretty much lays out what's going to happen in this course. The most important thing about this is down here under Files, and as we have new files and other things, I'll continue to add more and more files, but the first file that's part of the attachment as a PDF is an electronic version of what's right in front of you, your syllabus. So this is going to show us and tell us what's going to happen in the class. If you log on tonight, it's not going to be complete because I haven't had time to put all of the homework up yet. We'll be doing that in the next couple days, and you don't have any homework until a lot later, so don't worry about it. Don't think that there's nothing up there, so I don't have to do anything. So let's go ahead and open up your paper syllabus, which is the same version as this electronic file, and let's just walk through our syllabus. You can access this at any time if you just need a reference to go through. And if you need more of these, I can print them up and have them in class. So basic outline of the class is going to be 7 to 9 p.m. as we know, every Tuesday night here in the pastor's school classroom, even though it's a Bible college class. The next thing I want you to see is where it says required text. That's the book that you have in front of you. It's the Peace Child textbook. We'll go through that in a moment, but that is a required text. There are 2 other books if you need extra credit that you can read during the course. So if you're late coming to class and you lose a little credit, if you don't do your homework assignment one week and you need to make up credit, you're always going to want to go back and look at some of these extra credit books. Those will help you a lot. Under the course rationale, this course is designed to expose you to the movement of the Holy Spirit on a global scale. You understand the movement of the Holy Spirit in your life, in those that you're near, and in your home church. We want to expand your sights to the entire world so that God, as you're being introduced to these new ideas, can really begin to focus in on your calling in your life. We are going to hear from people across the spectrum, and I'll go through a list of those in just a moment. The aims of this course is to inspire a fresh commitment to the Lord. That's what we're here for. We're not here to learn Greek. We're not here to memorize the book of Romans. You need to do all those things. I want you to go Genesis to Revelation. You need to know your Bible back and forth. You need to be a scholar in so many ways. But my aim in this course is not to go through a ton of text. My aim in this course is to talk about the things that God wants to do through your life. And as you hear them and you're challenged by them, you simply say during class, after class, tomorrow morning, after you've wrestled with God all night long, all right, Lord, I've seen it, I understand it. What part do I play in it? I want to recommit my life to you. In a sense, we want to live radically. We want to live as though the book of Acts never stopped, because it hasn't. Luke stopped writing it, but God has never stopped doing the things that he did in the book of Acts in our lives. So page 2, as we can see on our syllabus, Under page 2, your homework is going to be to read 1 or 2 chapters, depending upon the timing we have each week, of the book Peace Child. That's the book that you have in front of you. We'll talk about the book in a moment once I bring up the slide for it. You're going to read 1 or 2 chapters in this book and then answer the questions on the website, on Populi. The questions are really easy. All they are is a quote from the book, and I need you to finish the quote. So as you're reading, the main point of that chapter is going to be like the bottom line, and you just need to finish whatever it is. I just need to know that you read it. So this isn't a lot of work, but it is a lot of heart-wrenching moments. The reason why we chose this book, Peace Child, is because it explains missions in the most hardcore way in the modern world. And as you read it, you'll be so challenged, and your whole entire concept of what missions look like will go to a whole new level. So it's a perfect book. Read 1 or 2 chapters a week, answer the questions. We'll look at the list of schedules for the reading in a moment. Continuing down on number 2 under course requirements is your midterm paper. Your midterm paper is going to be a 5-page paper that you will complete as you befriend and interview a cross-cultural neighbor or shopkeeper or a restaurant owner that's living in your community. This means you can't just go across the street and interview somebody that speaks perfect English that grew up just like you. You have to find somebody in your community that's cross-cultural. It means they came from another country. Maybe they're refugees. Maybe they just immigrated to be part of their family that's here. You need to find somebody, and shopkeepers are easy to find because when you see the writing on the top of the building that you can't read, there's a good chance they're a cross-cultural person. So neighbors, restaurant owners, or shopkeepers, as you befriend them and as you begin to build a friendship with them and talk with them, you're going to be able to start asking them questions. And so your midterm paper will be centered around interviewing them. We'll deal with this more in detail in a future class. I don't want to do it all now. It's way too much right now. We'll deal with it in a couple weeks. In this interview, as you begin to write it out, you will then create a 5-page paper describing your relationship. Now, one of the great things about interviewing somebody from another culture is that there's a ministry nearby called Voice of the Refugees, VOR. And Voice of the Refugees is a place where people come, mostly from the Middle East, mostly Arabs, that would be Muslims. When they come into our country, they're in a sense, they feel lost. Like, how do I do this? And how do I get a driver's license? And how do I pay my bills? And how do I even go to the store? And how do I call a taxi? They don't know any of those things. And so we go into Voice of the Refugees, mostly ladies, but guys can do it as well, and we befriend these ladies and we begin to talk to them. And so these interviews can happen at a restaurant with a neighbor or at Voice of the Refugees. And I haven't got a confirmation yet from the director of Voice of Refugees, but I believe he's going to be our teacher in a couple weeks from now. So he's going to come in and explain who is living amongst us and what their world is like and how we can best minister to them. So we're going to give you an avenue or an open door to meet these people, to interact with them, and this will change your life forever. And we'll discuss more of that in detail. This will be a 5-page minimum, 10-page maximum paper. In my class, I do not look at grammar. I don't look at sentence structure. I don't care about any of that. I care about your heart. I want to read this like it's your journal. And you're crying out, Lord, I didn't ever want to cross the street and meet that person. They actually freaked me out, and I never wanted to engage with them, but you led me over there. And then when I got there, and in a sense, you're writing down your experience. I want to read your heart. And when I met with them, and then you started to break my heart for them, and then I heard their stories, and I started to realize why they are the way that they are, because they didn't grow up in the bubble of America with all of its beauty and all of its wealth and all of its safety. They definitely didn't grow up in Orange County, one of the wealthiest places on the planet. They came from a war zone. And now my heart's broken for them, and I'm praying for them. These are the kinds of things I want to hear in your paper. We're not looking for sentence structure. We're looking for your heart. And you can see at the very bottom of that, under that second section, it says that when you get done writing your 5-page minimum, 10-page maximum, you're going to upload it to the website. Don't give me a paper copy of your midterm. I don't read well, which means, because I have dyslexia, I have to have it on a computer and the computer reads it to me. And so I just sit back and I listen to your papers as though we're dialoguing. So don't bring in a paper and say, here's my midterm, and it's tiered by the due date. Well, I won't accept it. It's got to be uploaded to the website. So it's easy. We'll make a way for you to do that, and that will be something simple to do. Also, in writing that, we do need to, if you just scan to the very back of page 5 of 5 on your syllabus, it says that there's a writing guide and a different way to do stuff. So always follow, when you're writing those papers, always follow the last 2 pages of the academic policy, the late homework policy, and the writing guide. These are just college standards. So even though I'm not going to spell check you, you still need to do the college standards. So don't want to make it too easy. That would be really bad. All right, moving down to number 3 is your final paper. So you have homework, midterm, and now final paper. Final paper is a 5-page reflection paper that will be due at the end of the course. In this paper, come back just here real quick. Here we go. In this paper, you will be explaining in detail how your understanding of missions has expanded. Personal. This is what I want to know personally. You used to think of missions as this country I visited and this person I heard from, and that was it. I want to know how big your understanding of missions has become. And with all of the guest speakers, there's going to be no excuse to saying, my mind is literally blown by the amount of things I've learned in this class. So I want to hear about that. That would be one part of it. And then the second part is going to be, how has God revealed through His Word, His commission, His calling, His stirring in you for missions. So your personal understanding of missions, what God's Word says about missions, and then number 3, what steps are you going to take to respond to what God has done in your heart practically. So this isn't just a class of theory. This is a class of practicality. We want to see you put feet to the faith that God is putting in your heart and take steps in those things that God's leading you to. And know this, everybody's going to be different. Where one person in the class says, I've been on 70 mission trips. Another person says, I'm still waiting to go my first. Great, no problem. We're all in this together. We're growing up as a family. Some of us are older, some of us are younger in the faith, not in age, in the faith. I didn't go on my first mission trip until I was 24 or 25 years old. I didn't own a passport until I was 25 years old. Now that's a crime, it's a tragedy, but that's my story. When I went on my first missions trip, I couldn't even breathe. I was so overwhelmed by culture. I had no idea what I was getting into. We all get to that point. So we want to see what God is doing in this final paper as He's progressing your understanding in your heart, in His Word, and now the next step of your life. Again, 5 pages minimum, 10 pages maximum. If you have the style of writing where you just like to write, that's great, but don't go over 10 pages. I had a guy last semester, 25 pages. And I'm like, dude, you're killing me. That's like 5 students. I don't have time for 25 pages. So 5 minimum, 10 maximum. Again, no hard copy. Upload those to the website. All right, continuing down, summary of the course. Your weekly readings and questions is 50% of the course. Nice and easy. It doesn't get difficult. So you read, you answer the questions, you have those done before class starts. So if class starts at 7 p.m., we're going to turn off the ability to do the questions on the website at 6:59 day of class. So you have to read them before class starts. You can do them anytime before that. And some people like to do them all together. I'm okay with that. In this semester, it's one long story in your reading book. It's not a technical book where I want you to go through things piece by piece. If you want to just read through the entire story on a weekend and then answer all the questions, you're free to do that. But each one of them must be done before the class. You can do it all the first week, but make sure each one's done before the class starts and keep up with that. That's 50% of your grade, which means each week, I think it's 4 points or 4%, adding up to 50% by the time we're done with a 15-week course. Then our midterm is going to be 25%. We can see that here. So that paper is a quarter of your grade, so don't miss it. You miss the midterm, you go from an A to a C. Just like that. Don't do it. You'll regret it. Then there's extra credit if that does happen for some emergency. And then your final paper is going to be 25%. So the class is pretty simple. The book is 50, each paper is 25, that makes up 100. We're going to have a cultural dinner after the semester, well, I should say just before the semester's over, and just coming to dinner and buying dinner and hanging out with us and telling stories, you get 5% credit. So if you miss 1 week of readings, make sure you come to the cultural dinner. You're going to love the cultural dinner anyways, so that's going to be great. If you have, let's say, an emergency and something goes wrong and you do miss a couple classes or you miss a couple readings, you can read an entirely separate book, and it's a thin book, it's not a thick book, an entirely separate book called Radical, written by a guy named David Platt, and you write me a 4-page, or I think it's a 2-page to 4-page summary of that book, and I'll put that on the website, and that will give you 10% of the grade. So you can choose either Radical or Serving as Senders, or both. So let's say something goes wrong and you can't make your midterm or you can't do your final, you can make up 20% of the class by doing 2 more books. So know this, if you procrastinate on one thing and you can't make it, you're going to have to double down or triple down to do the other. So I'm not giving you a way out, I'm giving you another option, but it's going to be twice as hard because you're going to try to keep up and do that as well. Any questions on the credit scoring or the extra credit? All right, you guys are good. These are all tedious, I know, I'm sorry. All this going through the details of the class. All right, let's burn through this one. This is your 3rd page of your syllabus. On this 3rd page, we can see that tonight it's understanding the unreached. There's no reading due. Next week we will have reading due, so it's good that you all have your books tonight. Next week, we were going to have a student testimony. This is one of our graduate students that does missions and is a videographer, and she goes all over the world and shoots amazing stuff, and her story is wonderful. But because of the flood in Texas, she called me this morning and said, I'm on my way to Texas, I got to shoot a documentary, so move me around. So long story short, the schedule's going to change, like who goes where, but we're going to end up hearing from all these people. So I'm not sure what's next week, but it will be awesome. So we'll have student testimonies, and then we'll have a teaching on our missionary God. We'll go from Genesis to Revelation on who is the first missionary, God the Father. When did he start as a missionary? Do you guys know the answer to this? It's the first time in the Old Testament we see God reaching out to people as a missionary, calling out to his people. Your minds are spinning. At the fall. What chapter was it? Genesis chapter 3, right? God says, Adam, where are you? It's the first missionary word in the Bible. So we'll start in Genesis and we'll make our way all the way through. So the missionary God. When we learn that God has always been a missionary from eternity past to the present, we'll say, wow, this didn't start with Paul. This didn't start with the baptism of the Spirit and the day of Pentecost. This has been going on for thousands of years. Am I on board with God's entire plan? Or am I just doing what God, or what I think God wants me to do because it's comfortable for me? So this will stir us to a deeper understanding of missions. Then hopefully we'll be getting our guy from Voice of the Refugees, and he'll talk to us about internationals. These are unreached people from other cultures living amongst us. Because this is where mission starts. We touch the people that are living here. When we think about internationals living amongst us, we must remember that only 1% of the unreached make it to the U.S. So yes, we receive Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Sikhs, all of these other major religions, but we only receive 1% of them. So we can't be under the impression that if I go to Voice of the Refugees or I reach out to my Indian neighbor, I've fulfilled the Great Commission in reaching all of the nations. No, you've reached one person out of 100, and the other 99 are in a place where there are no churches. But it's got to start here. Can you imagine the tragedy of somebody coming to our shores, being around our homes and around our churches, and then going to hell and never hearing the gospel? I mean, to me, that's absurd. The next step after that is going to those countries and such. So we start with who God's given us, and then we go to them, and hopefully in ministering to people here, some of them that get saved and they go back to their countries and they become amazing national evangelists. But that's not normal. God is still sending us to be a part of that. Then we're going to hear from a man that's reaching Muslims in the U.S. constantly. He teaches here at the college. He goes to Calvary Chapel, Anaheim, so he's local. He goes to Dearborn, Michigan, and does these huge outreaches with Muslims. He goes to the mosque here in Santa Ana, just around the corner, every Friday. This man is completely dedicated to seeing Muslims reached by the gospel. So when we think of those 2 million Muslims living in our hometown, this is the guy that helps us to truly make an inroad into their lives. And I forgot to say that on each of these courses, each of these classes, each subject, I'm going to recommend a book to you, so that if you say, hey, this one about reaching Muslims is just so touching my heart, I can give you a book, and that book will take you to a whole new level. So think of this class each week as just scratching the surface. And we're going to go across all of these subjects. Each of them you can go much deeper in. And level 2, culture, next semester will go a lot deeper into a lot of those things. So reaching Muslims in the U.S. The next one is cross-cultural awareness. This one's going to be super fun. We're going to do things in the class as a role play, as though we're in another country. I'm going to do things that are going to embarrass you guys to death, because those are the things that were done to me when I first went overseas. We're going to have a really good time with cross-cultural awareness, and that is simply a prelude to level 2. Level 2 is understanding culture. So we're going to just briefly touch understanding culture in this course, and then we're going to do 15 weeks of it next semester. And normally 80% of our people that are in the class, they come to level 2. We have a great time doing that. And then we have modern missions. Where are we today? How far have we gone? Since Jesus gave the Great Commission, how much progress have we made up until this point? And this one is going to blow your mind and break your heart. But it's modern missions. How far have we gotten with the gospel? And then short-term miracles, we're going to talk about how God uses foolish Americans that simply jump on a plane and say, Lord, I know there's something going on in that country. I know you want me to go there. I'm only going to be there for 2 weeks. Do a miracle. God does miracles on short-term trips. And that's how most missions start. Many of you have been on them. We're going to talk about some of those. I'm going to talk to you about going to unreached nations, not reached nations that have churches, and helping those churches. That's what most short-term trips are. 95% of all short-term trips are Christians helping Christians in nations that need a little bit more help. I'm going to talk to you about going to totally unreached nations and stepping out in faith completely and saying, God, show me what's next, and how God will use that. And through that, I ended up moving to a foreign country, and I never thought that would happen. Went on 2 short-term trips. God was doing a great thing. I went on a 3rd short-term trip with a missionary as a missions pastor. I was helping this missionary establish himself in that country, and the Lord told that man, you're not living here. And he turned to me in prayer and said, Rob, this is your new home. So I had no idea I was going to live in Asia until I was on that 3rd short-term trip, and then I got my call to live there. Then we're going to talk about inner city church planting. This is going to be so fun. This is our friend. His name is Jose. He's from Calvary Chapel Watts, or Hope Watts Central, or something like that. He was born and raised in the ghetto with all of the gangs and all the stuff. He got saved and got out and thought, I'm done with that. And the Lord kept saying, I let you be born there because I want you to pastor there. So now he's back there pastoring, and if you're on his Facebook or his blog, we're getting shot at tonight, but it's going to be okay. And come by tomorrow, we're going to have a great time doing an outreach in the park, and all the gun violence will be done by the time the sun rises. Come on out. So my church, Calvary Saving Grace, is there all the time. And we've got a lot of our older ladies that I thought would be like at home taking care of their grandkids, and they're in Watts helping out with these kids that are broken. So we're going to hear from guys that have sold everything and given up everything to move right down the street and minister in our hardest neighborhoods where the gospel is very rarely spoken. Where we are right now today in this part of Orange County, the gospel is just spilling over. But you go 10, 20 miles up the road where it's really difficult and you just get whispers of it. We need to go everywhere, starting at home, reaching our way out. And then we're going to hear from a man that's targeting the unengaged. There's unreached, which I'm sure you've heard the term unreached, means they've never received the gospel. And then there's unengaged. Unengaged are different. They are people that have received the gospel and outright rejected it and have looked at another way of living. And so a friend of mine's a plumber. And when he realized that there were these raves that were going on, where people were going to these massive parties with all the drugs and very little clothing and taking ecstasy, which makes you desire relationships, and girls getting gang raped and not even knowing it. And when Rob the plumber, my friend, and his wife Colleen, the homeschool mom, realized it, they went home and they just began weeping, and God said, this is your new ministry. So for 5 years, they've been going to raves and bringing hope to our most broken people within our own subculture, within our Orange County group. Wealthy, white, Christianized people that have rejected the gospel. They're going in and they're rescuing them out of the bondage that the enemy is bringing. So targeting unengaged in the U.S. And then at the end of that, we're going to be hearing from a senior pastor and how every pastor should have a passion to send. And if your pastor doesn't have a passion to send, I'm really thankful for all the pastors out there, but if you feel a call and your pastor doesn't have a passion to send, you really need to consider what church is going to be best for you. We don't want anybody to change churches. That's not what I'm talking about. And as I think about all the churches you guys are part of, I'm guaranteed all of your pastors are on board. But if your pastor isn't on board, what can you do to actually go out if your pastor doesn't want to send you? And what should you look for in the heart of a senior pastor? So we'll hear from someone that will be talking to us about that. And then World Changers is a testimony of 5 foolish, white, homogenized Orange County kids that got on a plane, answered God's call, and the unreached are being reached because 5 kids said, Lord, we don't know what to do, but we know you're calling us, we're going to do it. So it's that testimony. I call them world changers. God using the foolish to confound the wise. And then finally, a missionary's priorities. This would be raising up nationals. What is our actual role in missions? It's to go somewhere, to infuse the Word of God into the entirety of their structure by living with them, loving them, knowing their language, being a part of them, and then watching God raise up nationals. And every national can do 10 times what any foreigner like myself in that country can do. And when one person like myself raising up 10 nationals, I mean, do the math. I'm one man, I can do 1%. I raise up 10 nationals, they can do 10 times what I can do. Now we're seeing 100 times more fruit because I gave my life for 10 of them. Jesus gave his life for pretty much 11, and Paul being number 12. And what happened? The entirety of the known Roman world at that time was reached because Jesus invested into 12 guys. This is our priority. Invest in nationals and see the gospel go forth into every corner of that nation. And then finally, serving as senders. You're going to love my wife when she comes out and teaches us about this. We're going to talk about how a missionary goes out, and when they go out, there's all kinds of excitement and fanfare, and everybody's on board. And then, in a sense, over time, they're out of sight, so they're out of mind, and they get forgotten about. And so many missionaries crash and burn because their church forgets about them. And it's no one's fault, it's just a matter of bad planning. Well, we're here to fulfill the Great Commission. So we're not just talking about the missionary, we're talking about the 9 people that are the senders to every one missionary. And that's how we understand it. In the military, right now, it takes 9 people in active service to put 1 soldier in the battle. 9 full-time military personnel on a base, on a boat, in the air, somewhere to put 1 guy on the ground to actually fulfill the mission. Missions is exactly the same. We need to serve as senders, missions pastors, people that lead short-term trips, encouragers, a ton of different things. We're going to talk about all of that. Below that are the recommended resources. These are the books that I'm going to recommend in class. I have them listed out, so if you don't write down when I'm recommending one, you can always come back and refer to this list. So all of these books are life-changing. Every one of them. Figure out where God has you, and then we can begin to take steps from there. All right, attendance policy. You've got to come to class. If you don't come to class, you don't get credit. That's pretty much, that's the way it is. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I noticed your recording. Are these accessible to see after? Or?
Yes, and right now we're having trouble with editing, like the person to actually get them online. So some of our previous classes are uploaded and they're online and they're ready, but these ones aren't up, and I would love to get them up every week, but because we're doing I'm doing 3 classes this semester, I'm trying to get them up as much as I can. And this is my part-time job, so it's one of those things of we're running a ministry in Africa and doing that. So if you know anybody, if yourself or anybody wants to help with editing, we'd love to do that. And they're free. They're available to anybody at any time. They go on YouTube first. So they're just out there for everybody. So if you do miss a class, you can always watch it online, which is a lot easier than listening to the recording. There is an audio recording that I'm making, and you can get that from the website, or you can go on my website and you can watch it. So either listen or watch. Is that the question that you have? All right. If you are late to class, today we're not going to do it, but normally when you come in, within the first 15 minutes, it's the normal sign-in sheet. If you're late, they pull the normal sign-in sheet, the tardy sheet goes out, and then you need to sign that, and then there's something that you have to do to make up for that, but all that's done in the office. I don't handle late attendance, and I don't handle attendance at all. That's all done through the office. You can email and correspond with Joel in the office. And then your homework, the same things apply there. Talk to the office about it. They know how to handle it, and everything will be done online. And it's not hard, so you'll just need to set aside the time to do it. All right? Any questions on the syllabus? We're all good? Okay? All right, let's just look through a couple more few details, and then we'll take a break. On the Populi website, when you go on, you're going to see here, there's dashboard, which you probably won't utilize unless we have an announcement. Information, which is all those files and other details. And then assignments is the tab you're going to be using every week. The assignments tab is going to give you all of the criteria that we just went through, and then each of the assignments. And so as the weeks go on, the dates will change here. So you see this is from last year. This was September 1st. They were all available. So you could do them all in one weekend, but this one had to be done by the 8th, by the 15th, by the 20th, by the time of class. So all those are found in the missions class under assignments. Click on that, and the questions are there. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions? I see hands go up. All right. The book you're going to be reading is called Peace Child. Have anybody ever read Peace Child? Is this new for everybody? Oh, you were here last semester, so you read it. Peace Child is the most amazing story I have ever read by a modern missionary. There are great stories of William Carey, and Andrew Fuller, Adoniram Judson, all these guys that have gone all over the world, Hudson Taylor. This one by Don Richardson is modern. He actually went on the field, I think the year I was born. So I was born in 71. I think he got to the field like right in the late 60s. So this is modern day miracles of a Western white man from Canada and his American wife got together, got married, went to a missionary Bible college in Canada, and heard that there were people in the jungles of Papua New Guinea that had never seen a white person, had never heard the gospel, and they went into headhunting tribes and began to learn their language and live with them. Now this, every time you turn the page, it's like life and death. Are they going to make it through the day? This is insane. The reason why I want you to read this book is because if he can do it, anybody can do it. And he's not the most brilliant man. Now he's a great writer, and you're going to see that as you're listening, as you're reading it. I actually listen to it. I love his audio. He's a great writer. He's the only author I know that submitted the book to the publisher, and the publisher says we have like one change. Publisher only has hundreds of changes. So this guy, he didn't just do it, but he sat back and he thought, how can I explain this to the world? It's a training book. It's a wonderful book. But here's the warning. There are very violent stories in the first 3 chapters. They're headhunters. So what he does is he lays a foundation of their tribal beliefs by walking you through their murderous headhunting moments. So as you're reading it, some of our students came back and they're like, I've got a stomach ache. That made me sick. Well, this is what the unreached are like. And when you read the Old Testament, in a sense, the way that Moses writes it, he kind of glosses over a few things that Don will actually go into depth because the guys in the Old Testament were there. They understood it. You were not there, so Don actually shows it to us like we're smelling it and we're feeling it and we're experiencing it. But all of these things happened in the Old Testament. Jesus lived in a world that was just like this, and the light of the gospel is not hindered by mass violence. And if we've ever seen a movie from Hollywood, it's really no big deal. But if you're sensitive, just know, first 3 chapters, you're going to get a stomach ache. You always show how bad it is to show how good it can become. So it starts dark, it ends very, very light. So each week, You'll have a series of questions and answers. Go through those before class. This book will change your life. What it's taught me is that the major, or I should say the primary passion of the missionary is to never give up. If you know the term tenacity, hold on to it and never let go. This is God's call, and I'm never going to give up. This is the proof of it. This man and his wife and his infant child go into a hen hunting tribe, and by the time they're done, not just that tribe, but I think 6 or 7 tribes around them are all born again. They're from headhunters to born again believers, loving each other, witnessing to other headhunters. Miraculous, miraculous stuff. Personal struggles, personal trials, and the depth of depravity amongst the unreached. It brings it all out. It's a great first book. So that's your required reading. Now we have our extra credit readings. This is a book that I'm using. We're doing the pastor school in here. It's the same class but geared towards pastors. This is their required book because this book is written to the American that's going to stay, to say what are we doing or not doing to fulfill the Great Commission. This book is easy. It's 9 chapters. That's why we made it extra credit. It will give you 10% of your grade if you want to go through it. This book will challenge you to the core, from one pastor to another, from one believer to another. Does God want me to live radically? Absolutely. In a sense, you see the house that's turned upside down. The subtitle of the book is Taking Back Your Faith from the American Dream. We all have this American dream in our minds. It was never given to us by the Lord. Now, His blessings have brought upon the prosperity that we live with that allow for the American dream. But does the American dream own us? Or does the Great Commission own us? Does God's passion for our lives own us? And so that's what that is. So that's a 2 to 4 page book report on that if you need the extra credit. And then there's serving as senders. This is like standard stuff for anybody that's going to stay home and send people out. This book changed my senders that helped me go. It changed their lives. As I went to my greatest sender, which is my father-in-law, not my dad, right? Somebody that already loves me. This is my father-in-law. I go to my father-in-law one night and say to him, myself and your beautiful young daughter are going to move to a refugee camp that's got malaria, Ebola, rebel attacks, all that stuff. And in his heart as a father, what's he saying? You ain't going nowhere. You're not taking my princess to that war zone, that hellhole. There's no better way to describe it. You're not doing it. And I said, well, we're married and I love you and I'm trying to be as respectful as I can, but I'm excited and we're going. He said that night after we left that dinner, it was one of the tensest dinners we've ever had. He sat on the couch, actually laid on the couch, and he said, he goes, I wrestled with God all night. I just laid there and I wept and then I sweat and then I got angry and then I cried out and then I prayed. And the next day by that morning, the Lord said, I'm calling you to send them. Don't get angry with them. They're following me, send them. And for a father to send his daughter into a place like that changes everything. He picked up this book and realized all of the ways that he could be a sender. Then he not just read the book for himself, but he bought the book for every other person in the church. And our church is filled with missionaries that are always coming and going. And he gave it to everybody. And then whenever he hears about a son-in-law that goes to a father-in-law and says, I'm going to take your daughter to a foreign country, he calls him up and says, I've been where you've been. Here's the book that you need. Long story short, this book is wonderful. Easy reading, easy to get through. Again, 2 to 4 pages, 10% extra credit. There'll be more details on Populi on how to do that. With all of these books, or I should say with the first 2 books, not this one, you can get them in audio. If you like to listen, some people are audible learners, other ones are visual learners. I am more of an audible learner. So I download Peace Child, it's a great narration, and I download Radical, and I listen to them. I've listened to Peace Child, I would say 10 times. I just got done with it 2 days ago because I love it. And then I'll listen to the chapter before we come to class. So by the end of this semester, it'll be 11 times. I love listening to it. I listen to it as I'm driving to class. It's just refreshing. So if you like to learn that way, download those things. They can be Apple Music, which is also Apple Books. You can do the Kindle versions. You can do all that stuff. Christian Audio is also another one. All right, those are our required and extra credit readings. And then we're going to have a cultural dinner. Jay, are you in this picture? No, you weren't in this class. I was thinking I was going to pick you up. Are you in there?
Yeah, I'm next to Steve where you can't see me. I'm at the
Oh, you're right here? I thought you were right there. We're going to go to places where the food is so good, you'll never want to go anywhere else. But at the same time, you're like, wow, that's really weird. That's really weird. Is that really a Buddha up in the back corner? Are those really statues all around the room? Are there really Buddhist flags flying above my head? What's this music we're listening to? Where are we, by the way? These are places that are in Orange County. And so as we finish a course, we go to different ethnic restaurants. This time we're going to go to Ethiopian food. This is a picture from our level 2. This is Himalayan food. And then level 3, we go to the best Arabic food in town. And the guy that leads us is from Jordan. He's a born-again Jordanian, and he talks all about the culture and why you eat this and why you drink the coffee that way and how it works and why the guy that's serving you the coffee has a gun on his side, because it's all part of being a shepherd out in this is the whole cultural thing. So these are wonderful times. These are extra credit. You get 5% of your grade to come and eat the best food in the world in strange places. And so it's normally about $20 a person, depending upon where we go, $15 to $20 a person, and it's you plus a guest. So it's you plus one. So you can bring a spouse or friend, whoever you want, and you'll have a great time with that. So extra credit cultural dinner. Moving to short-term missions trips. We're going to be going to Mexico in September, Haiti in September, LA, this would be local, this would be Skid Row, Fred Jordan Mission. In November, this will be the Thanksgiving, as you can see the dates there. And then back to Mexico to pass out some things before Christmas, like the Operation Christmas Childs. And we'll be doing that. And then we'll be going again December 26th, a little bit longer over the new year to January 8th. And so this will be a shorter trip. That'll be a longer trip. And more trips are added all the time. This is just what we have as of today. I don't personally lead these trips. My job is to work with my guys in the war zone in South Sudan. That's my ministry. I don't do personally short-term trips, but James Flores is a friend of ours, and he works closely with some of your churches, and he's the one that leads all of these. And so feel free to go on any trip that your church is going on, but if you don't have a trip that your church is going on and you want to be a part of one of these, you're always welcome. And so we'll have James come in and share with you, and we'll have him go through this, and then when these are updated, I'll send you the website and the dates and all of that. So those are always available. Each of those trips have different costs. Some of them drive, some of them fly. Of course, 1 day, 3 days driving, a plane flight here. And I believe a Uganda or something in Africa is going to get mixed into all that. All right? Any questions with any of those things?
Question here, if we take a trip like that, would that be an excused absence?
That's something I'm working with the staff on, because for me, yes. But I still need to get approval from the office. And sometimes, and it really depends on the student, and that's what I've learned in the past, if you're a dedicated student and you do your stuff beforehand, then it's no problem. But a lot of times guys just go and they don't do any of the work, and then they get in a lot of trouble. So if you can do, and my class doesn't have a lot of homework, if you can get it done and then you listen to the class when you get back of whatever you missed, then it's probably excused, but I can't guarantee, okay? But I want to say yes. All right, we all good? All right, let's take a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we'll conclude this first semester, this first class with understanding the unreached. All right.